Hey, Dorkaholics, this is Neil. Today I am with Payhuan, founder of Immortal Studios. We're here to talk about his current Kickstarter campaign to bring wuxia stories to mainstream audiences.
Hey everybody, it's an honor to be presenting something we're calling Turning the Page on Superheroes. Because as you know, Marvel and DC have had an amazing run. We've all spent a huge amount of time watching it. Meanwhile, anime, manga, and I think influences from the East have taken over. And this is also representing, I think, a general superhero fatigue that in as much as we love heroes in our lives, we're ready for the heroes to look more like us and also to represent perspectives and personality traits that are closer to our natural personalities. And also, I think for those of us who really like pop culture, we're looking for traces of ourselves and how to be best versions of ourselves. And wuxia genre, I think in English known as the martial arts fantasy genre, has always been about empowering the hero inside all of us with kind of like a real path of getting there. So coupled with our commitment to reflecting a modern world that's close to our complicated realities with these kind of hero archetypes that really empowers us with supernatural powers that actually come from alignment with nature, with spirit, with philosophy versus radioactive spiders. This forms like a really interesting time to say, hey, let's turn the page on superheroes. We've given them a lot of time and a lot of love. Let's welcome in a new type of genre that's been around for thousands of years that's uniquely situated for our time. And this is where the Immortal Storyverse, we call it. And this is a very special Kickstarter campaign. This is our sixth campaign, so we've already successfully fulfilled various ones that have been single issue comics. This time we put all of our core foundational issues in one major campaign. So we're actually launching four chapters in our interconnected world we call the Immortal Storyverse. So a really exciting moment for people joining us for the first time. This is a great time to access all the work that we've done to date.
On that note of the interconnectedness of the Storyverse, looking at the movie, at each of the series covers, as well as seeing some preview pages, I have to ask, could you explain a little bit more of what readers can expect from the interconnectedness, such as it appears that these are characters across different points in time, different places around the world? What can we expect when it comes to them crossing paths or the impact of their actions on each other?
First of all, there's four pillars in the interconnected world. So people who like the martial arts fantasy genre, you've seen kind of where Bruce Lee's at, which is more grounded action, or Cobra Kai, or something more elevated and mysterious and things that look more spectacular, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, upwards to like a Matrix, where like it's outblown supernatural, all the way to like a Monkey King or a Dragon Ball Z. So we're now talking about intergalactic. So these four pillars have always been influences of the genre. They've never been put together in an interconnected world. So what people can expect is a confluence of these subgenres that they love. Now then, when we pull back a little bit, that's why you have these four different stories to see, wow, they're actually part of an interconnected world. There's actually a major thread that's threatening them. And hey, by the way, the world looks a lot like ours. Even though these different characters come across different times, they have different kinds of powers and influences. But when you actually see the four together, it's like, wow, they're really building up to something really big that is incredibly ambitious and also fulfilling, because you don't have to watch them in different stories now. Now you have one interconnected world to bring together all these various influences. So what people can find is kind of an ode to the things that they really like, and also some interconnections that are very refreshing. And then also see a lot of themselves, the challenges of the modern person reflected back in these stories.
For each of the titles in the Immortal Storyverse, are there any specific folklores or modern stories that may come to mind for readers as they dive into each issues? Just because wuxia hasn't been in the mainstream consciousness of pop culture for very long, but we have seen it in Hidden Tiger, Crouching Dragon, or the Monkey King in Dragon Ball Z, or American Born Chinese. Just for each of the titles, is there any specific folklores or modern mythologies that fans will recognize?
Absolutely. We started with a story called The Adept, which is about a young woman who is taught kung fu in her dreams by a Shaolin monk. So there's a reason we started with that, because actually most of the Western world got to know this body of work at the mass level through kind of like 70s kung fu films. So when you think about 70s kung fu films, you think about Bruce Lee, you invariably think about Shaolin and Shaolin Temple, because Shaolin, it kind of started. This is the institution that started the whole Kung Fu mythology. So we started with an ode to Shaolin. So for people who would like The Last Airbender or Bruce Lee or the original Kung Fu television show, there's an ode to Shaolin. So you're going to see a lot. What people are going to find is a lot more of the meaningful Yoda talk, the philosophy that really, really brings it all together. So it's not just physical combat. For gamers, you're also going to see a lot of the gaming scenarios you find in your favorite MMORPGs. We're talking about supernatural abilities. We're talking about chi. We're talking about flying swords. We're talking about monsters and goblins. You didn't think that they would fit together, so it's an ode to all of them. So for fans of, like, say, Shang-Chi or John Wick, Cobra Kai, you're going to see a lot of those influences, but what is different about them is the level of authenticity and adherence to the totality of these philosophies, and not just like little tidbits. So we're going to find a lot more continuity. And I think for people who are always looking for, one of the things that this genre has always been about is about personal transformation. You're going to see a lot of that becoming heroes versus, oh, I'm going to just take a pill and become, or fall into this cosmic dust, and then I'm going to turn into a hero. So we spend a lot more time in developing how ordinary people become heroes. And those are the kind of things people can expect from the Immortal Storyverse across these different kinds of subgenres.
Where does the passion and drive for you come from, not only having founded Immortal Studios, but also continuing the legacy of this genre?
I think it's almost like the genre chose me, because I was born into, different people are born into different kinds of families. I was born into kind of a warrior or a martial arts fantasy family. My father was one of the top creators in the genre, so I grew up reading his books, and because of his friends and the books that he collected, I would say by the time I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of martial arts books that just came through my path. So I literally grew up in the genre. And later on, as an adult, when I chose the entertainment media profession to be a creator, to be a storyteller, it was a natural thing to get into, because it was something that I was really deeply passionate about, something I knew a whole lot about. And as time wore on, I really thought of this genre as something that's incredibly meaningful to preserve, and a real honor to be associated with it. And of course, as an adult, I would become a martial artist myself. I would become a practitioner of these ancient ways. So I was able to appreciate it, not just from a level of detached aesthetics or culture or coolness, but just kind of authentic living. So when you put all of those things together, I was like, man, this is something that is super powerful and really spoke to me. So it's a continuity of a lineage that's unbroken.
What are some of the most important lessons that you learned from your father that you carry with you today?
Josh, this is such a great question, because we're honoring the five. This is my father's fifth anniversary of his passing, so it's a very poignant question. I think my father taught me the power of imagination. He really, because he was a creator, I saw the power of just really leaning into your imagination and where that can lead you. He also taught me a sense of real social consciousness. I remember when I was a young man just really thinking about what I can do with the rest of my life. And he told me, he actually sat me down and said, son, I don't really care how much money you make, but I want you to really think about how you can benefit mankind. How can you make a massive contribution to society at large? I want you to be a useful person who actually contributes to the whole. So I think those were just some real seminal influences. They did impact the decisions that I made, and impacted my decision to kind of carry forth the legacy of Immortal Studios. And I think also as a man, he really taught me the importance of having a spine of steel to never surrender.
See that you have the covers for some of the issues in the Immortal Storyverse behind you. Do you want to just share some of what are your favorite things about each of those stories?
Ooh, I love all of these stories because they're in so many ways my children. I love them because they all represent different archetypes, that's of different types of heroes and the conditions in which they're created in very, very specific ways. So for in the Adept, we see kind of what happens to a young girl who comes from a broken family. In Chronicles of the Immortal Swordsman is a younger man who knows that he's intended to do something. He doesn't know how to tap into that hidden power. And in Fa Sheng, we kind of go to the founding ideals of what Kung Fu is, and whether it asks the question, it's like, how do you pierce from regular Kung Fu into supernatural Kung Fu? And in Assassin G, we pose even a more salient question, probably more important than ever today, which is, can love really overcome hate? So each of them kind of explored really meaningful questions of what it means to be a person. How do we really access the extraordinary? And what are kind of the emotional, real impediments that come up as we go in this journey? And all of these different stories also explore, I think, the fun aspect of it, stylistically. How are they very, very different? And how the chi, or the animating force in the Immortal Storyverse, shows up differently in each of these characters' lives. And ultimately, the exciting thing about turning the page on superheroes, where all of these come together, is now we're able to pull it back and say, wow, this is actually the modern world. This is the story that we're telling about humanity right now, is how can we find our inner voice? How can we awaken our heroes? And how can we come together? So that's kind of the larger question that we pose of the Immortal Storyverse. And I would say this is something that's relevant for everybody, because this is the life we're living today. These incredibly complicated times where the decisions we make about ourselves is going to have a direct impact on our lives we live, and also collectively as society. So these are the kind of questions that the Immortal Storyverse seeks to portray in a fun, engaging, and sometimes serious way.
I know one of the major milestones or hallmarks of the Immortal Studios has been the AAPI Hero Summit. Could you tell us a little bit about what that was and how the event turned out?
This is during the anti-Asian hate crisis we experienced, that we as a AAPI-led Storyverse, we thought it was important to really convene a lot of thought leaders, whether you're a politician, whether you're a creator, whether you are someone who works in Hollywood, you're an actor, you're a writer, producer, really come together and explore how can we come together to, I think, put a spotlight on AAPI experiences, not just for ourselves, but really for the public at large, because we're seeing through data and through the outcomes of that but we are a largely invisible community, even though we've been here for hundreds of years. And that through popular culture, through entertainment and media, by focusing on stories that depict people who look like me and having some of these experiences, we can make a difference. So the AAPI Summit is when we convene all of these various people. We had U.S. senators and members of Congress. We had some of the top movie stars and directors, and of course the creators from the Immortal Storyverse, really exploring how can we, through collaboration, elevate the profile of AAPI, members of the AAPI community, again, not just for ourselves, but for the public at large. And it was a really meaningful thing. And of course, that sense of mission continues to this day, because we continue to churn out these stories. And I'm really heartened by the fact that even though the majority of our users and people who watch our stories are not members of the AAPI community, they've accepted it just as great human experiences and engaging stories they want to be part of. So in certain respects, we've succeeded in doing that already.
And as I sit here in your home office, I see I'm just surrounded by the swirl as part of the Immortals logo. Is there a story behind the logo that you could share?
This is actually called the Immortal Flame. I'm going to show you. It's on my arm, and it's actually now been tattooed onto 5 other arms. Members of my team, after learning about the Immortal Flame. So we call this the symbol of the awakened warrior, because the mission of Immortal is to awaken the hero in everybody. And of course, every great movement needs a symbolic arrangement. I actually first saw this kind of in a vision, and I decided to draw it and play around with it. And eventually became our logo, became my tattoo. And for everybody else, it's known as the Immortal Flame. it symbolizes awakened warriorhood, and I'm really proud of it because we just presented it to the abbot of the Shaolin Temple, and now that flame is also connected with the source of mythological kung fu itself. So we have, I think we have something that's really enduring here.
And for the unfamiliar, could you elaborate what it means to truly be an awakened warrior?
To be an awakened warrior, so first to be awakened, because I think we're all sitting in our stupor. We don't really see our lives. We don't really see what's happening, the big picture of our lives clearly. So I think part of the awakening is just really get a clear glimpse of where we come from, who we are, and with it also a sense of a purpose naturally arises. So that, oh my goodness, these are the meaningful things that I want to do with my life. This is the things that I stand for. This is where I come from. This is my sense of contribution I want to make. And then being able to take these solid actions and moving that forward. So warriorhood can mean that you become a physical martial artist, but it really means something broader, is that we start to take action, and that we start to, we conquer our lower selves. You know, the voice inside your head that says you're not good enough, you're not doing it, you did blah, blah, blah. So we do it in spite of it. And that's like an action, that's like a warriorhood action when we actually begin to have clarity about who we are, and then we start to move that into real life. That's what awakened warriorhood means to us. So it's really about changing our lives from the inside out, to our highest potential and to our highest aspirations. And that's what I mean when we say awaken the hero in everybody. And we believe that stories really have that profound impact on people.
Thank you so much for your time today, Payhuan. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, getting to know about the Immortal Storyverse.
Thanks for being here. I'm also a fan of Dorkaholics, so keep up the great work. Keep bringing the fandom together, and want to celebrate the things that you guys do as well.